UCLA's William Andrews Clark Memorial Library and its collections were founded by William Andrews Clark, Jr. Clark Jr. was born in Deer Lodge, Montana Territory in 1877, the second son of Clark Sr. and Catherine Stouffer Clark. In 1901, he married Mabel Duffield Foster in Butte, Montana, and their child, William Andrews Clark III, nicknamed Tertius, was born in 1902. Mabel died just 1 month later. In 1907, Clark Jr. married his second wife, Alice G. McManus. They moved to Los Angeles shortly after, purchasing their home on the corner of West Adams and Cimarron Street. He eventually bought additional neighboring houses and was able to construct a brick wall around the entire block. The current library, designed by prominent local architect Robert D. Farquhar, was constructed from 1924 to 1926 on the same property to safely house Clark Jr.'s growing personal collection of books. After its completion, Clark announced his intent to donate the collection of then around 13,000 books, the buildings, and the property to what was known at the time as the Southern Branch of the University of California. The deed, along with a $1.5 million endowment, was transferred upon his death in 1934 and was UCLA's first major bequest. The library was named after Clark's father, U.S. Senator William Andrews Clark Sr., who made his fortune in copper mining in Montana, Arizona, and Nevada. The murals on prominent display in the vestibule are by Alan Cox. Different symbols in the niches reflect Clark's life and passions. The owls, snake, and oar represent wisdom, knowledge, and mining. The terrestrial globe relates closely to love of travel. The palette and drafting implements match his love of art and architecture. The scrolls and book naturally fit with his interest in collecting books and manuscripts. The armillary globe mirrors his astronomical interests. And the violin and horn relate to the fact that he was an amateur violinist and the founder of the LA Philharmonic. The face of all the men on the ceiling bear a resemblance to Clark's romantic partner, Harrison Post, who also decorated the library's interiors and selected much of the furniture still in the library today. The murals in the north and south book rooms were also done by Cox, in this case using a trompe-l'oeil effect to make the images look three-dimensional. Spring and summer are represented in the north book room, while fall and winter are in the south book room. The alabaster chandeliers came from the dining room in Clark Sr.'s mansion in New York, and the amber-colored windows were done by Judson Studios, a family-owned business in Pasadena that still exists today. The rooms hold bookcases made of bronze, a tribute to Clark Jr.'s copper mining heritage. The books shelved here are part of the library's fine press collection and include the personal libraries of Southern Californian printer and book designer Ward Ritchie, as well as the English sculptor and typeface designer Eric Gill. 2 portraits hang in the North Book Room, one of Isaac Newton and the other of poet and essayist Abraham Cowley. The South Book Room houses celestial and terrestrial globes from the turn of the 17th century by Domenici de Rubeus. The terrestrial globe still shows California as an island. A painted Steinway piano, bought new in 1929, also lives in the South Book Room. Ensembles often use it in concerts held at the library. One of the highlights of the Green or French Room is the portrait of a 27-year-old Oscar Wilde. It was painted by Robert Goodloe Harper Pennington, protege of James Abbott McNeill Whistler, sometime friend of Wilde's. In 1884, Pennington gave the portrait to Wilde and his wife, Constance, as a wedding present, and it originally hung at Oscar's Tite Street home in London. Wilde's household belongings, including this painting, were sold while he was in prison for his sexual orientation. Wilde's friends, Ernest and Ada Leverson, saved it at that time, and it eventually came into the possession of the previously mentioned Harrison Post, who gave it to his lover, Clark Jr. The magnificent drawing room, often used for events, also showcases painted scenes by Cox. The scenes on the north wall and ceiling are from John Dryden's play All for Love, inspired by Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, while the scene on the south wall is taken from Shakespeare's version. The green insets are based on Ovid's Metamorphoses, which Dryden translated from Latin in the 1690s. Clark bought heavily in Dryden materials and other books related to the Restoration and 18th century England. This area remains a strength of the library's collections. These portraits are by Henrique Medina, a well-known Portuguese portrait painter of the time, who spent several years in the U.S. in the 1930s and the 1940s. He also painted Dorian Gray in the 1945 movie rendition of Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, a relevant connection considering the Clark's extensive Wilde materials. Clark Jr.'s portrait is a copy by Medina of a painting he did for the law school, later the undergraduate library, of the University of Virginia, Clark's alma mater. To the left of Clark Jr. is a portrait of Robert Cowan, bookseller, book collector, and bibliographer. Cowan came onto the team when Clark broke his arm in 1919 and helped with preparing and revising the collations and notes for Clark's first two catalogs. He ran the library from around 1926 to 1933, a period during which Clark was often abroad or in Montana. Cowan helped in building the reference collection, as well as occasionally purchasing rare books, although Clark selected many of the books himself during his lifetime. In 1933, however, the strain of the Depression on Clark's fortunes led Clark to request Cowan's resignation. To the right of Clark Jr. is Cora Sanders. Sanders started as secretary and companion to Clark's first wife and had moved to LA with the family in 1907, serving in the same capacity to his second wife. Upon Alice McManus's death, she stayed on as a personal assistant to the library, where she handled acquisitions. She became the librarian upon Cowan's leaving and remained as curator after Clark's death until her retirement in 1942. 17th century English dramatist Thomas Killigrew can be seen in the frontispiece of the book Cora holds. This same image can be seen in the portrait of Killigrew across the room. Other portraits on this side of the room include those of poet and satirist Alexander Pope and cartographer and formerly dancer John Ogilvie, once again reflecting the 17th and 18th century strengths of the Clark's collections. The library and the Center for 17th and 18th Century Studies currently host a number of academic and public programs, including concerts, theatrical performances, conferences, lectures, exhibitions, and workshops. Clark Jr.'s collecting interests continue to influence the current holdings at the library, which has strengths in the 17th and 18th century, Oscar Wilde, book arts and fine press, history of the book and typography, and Montana. Anyone with an interest in the collection is welcome to work in the library reading room with these materials or contact us if they would like assistance remotely. For more on the library and how to access its services, please visit clarkllibrary.ucla.edu or call us at 310-794-5155.